Held on the 1st of March and taking place during DMU's Cultural Exchanges Festival, Media Bomb hosted a panel of 5 media and cultural industry professionals. Here the panel are discussing getting noticed.
So the very first question we're going to ask, so we can dive into that and allow Sarah to disappear, is about getting noticed, you know, and how important it is if you're considering self-employment or employment, which we'll come on to, degree versus experience. But how do you actually get yourself noticed in the first place? You know, how do you specialise in, what if you specialise in a background role? For example, you want to be a producer or a writer or an editor as opposed to a leader. Is there a better alternative to a CV, and do businesses prefer CVs, or should you have more creative methods? So I think what we'll do is, if we start with Sarah and then we'll work our way down, we'll dive into, you know, is there a better alternative to the CV?
Is there a better alternative to the CV? Well, speaking as a council faceless bureaucrat, yes, there is, because we don't accept CVs. The independent industry does, but you do have to work out what is it you want to do, what are you aiming at, and what are their requirements. So some companies, it's entirely word of mouth, it's ringing people up and it's literally getting yourself noticed. My daughter went to California and stalked people through Facebook events and Twitter, and she worked out, who do I want to do, what are they going to be at, what do they say on Twitter that they're going to be at, and she makes sure she got to those events and talked to them. If you want a job with me or with Tony here, you have to fill in a council online form, and that doesn't help you very much. But on the other hand, what you put on that form, you need to have made those personal contacts to demonstrate to me and Tony that you've got what it takes.
I'd agree with most of what Sarah said, to be honest. Even the council forms, to be honest, what I'm really looking for is a bit of you coming through. I want to see some personality. Anyone can fill in a form and say, yeah, I've got this qualification, that qualification, I've lived here and I've done that. But I want to see something about you. I want to know what you've done, what drives you and why you want to do the job. That's the interesting part for me. And the same is true of CVs. You know, when I worked in private industry, you get hundreds of CVs through. And I guess, you know, go down from the advertising agency to the end there, you get hundreds of CVs as well. Every single day, you know, you get tons of them. And you look at them and you quickly get an eye for, this is a dull CV and therefore a dull person, and it goes in the bin to be filed. Whereas if it looks interesting, and there's a kind of sort of an edge to it, and something interesting about you, and you're giving something over of yourself to the employer, then it goes in. That could be interesting. Even if there's nothing around at the time, it'll be a kind of, that looks like it might be interesting, and someone I want to talk to, and it will go into the file that says, let's ring them when we got something. So I would say bring something of yourself to it.
Well, for me, getting noticed, I suppose your portfolio is crucial. I probably get about 2 or 3 CVs a week. And the first thing I do is I look for a link to either your website, your blog, social media, just so I can see your work. Because the thing with CVs, you can lie on a CV, but you can't lie on your portfolio. If I like your portfolio, I then I will look at your CV, I'll look at where you live, I'll look at your experience, your education. It's kind of like the final bolts in a way. But for me, your portfolio, and the quickest way that, and the most effective way that you can send someone your portfolio will get you noticed. But also getting noticed as well is being on people's radars, being active, proactive, getting yourself out there, meeting people. People tend to kind of think about the people they see the most or hear the most. So just be out there, meeting people, and also social media, get out there, sending your work out and stay on people's radars.
Yeah, it's interesting what John says about social media. The first thing any employer will do when they get a CV through that looks vaguely interesting is go and check their Facebook and Twitter profile anyway, so you may as well do something with it, because if you look at it and it's just full of drunk pictures, you just think, yeah, maybe all right. But if somebody's actually made some effort and done something with it, then it's going to stand out. And I know CVs do have a purpose. There is information from the private sector that you have to see on a CV. You need to know people's qualifications, you need to know their previous experience and so on. But you can imagine we get stacks of them through all the time, and if they come through and they're just a sheet of A4 with Times New Roman with the text written on it, you tend to get lost. There might be good information in it, but it will get lost. If somebody puts some effort in design, it's particularly in the creative industry, it's the first thing that anyone's going to see. It's the first content you're going to have with the company. So put a bit of effort into, even if it's just the way it's looked, the way it's set out. One of the best ones, in fact, the placement guy who can't be here because he's working, he sent me one which just consisted of a load of QR codes, his name, a load of QR codes, and each QR code linked to something else. And immediately I had back a stack of 15. I sort of just put that to the side and went, I'm going to have a look at that again later, just because it was different. So just do something to make it stand out.
A few horror stories. I used to work in recruitment, and there's a film called Meet the Fockers. Anybody heard of that film, Meet the Fockers? Well, before they could actually have that film name, they had to find a family called Focker in America before they could produce it. And I know for a fact, when I used to be a Brook Street recruitment branch manager, and I probably shouldn't have said that, we had a client who used to find the member of staff with the most difficult name to spell and put them on the advert. So if you actually wrote the envelope incorrectly, it wasn't even opened. And then if it was a handwritten application, you spelt the name wrong inside, that would go in the bin. Okay, so you're looking for a way to really stand out. And I think ultimately what you've got to look for is your degree will get you the interview, it won't get you the job. Yeah. And that's really how you stand out, what you've done, why you're here. And it's always interesting when I talk to the media students, whether they're first, second, third or postgrads, is depending on how far they're coming over the table to talk to me about who I know, how I can get them in, am I connected? And the answer to all of that is I'm not connected, I don't really know anybody, I've just gone off and done it myself, okay? So we'll come on to that one when you're talking about freelance or working for anybody. So, would anybody like, at the moment in the audience, to ask a question to a particular panel member relevant to what they said?
Yeah, I have a question for, well, all of you really, if you can answer it, but, you know, particularly to John. Is there any way that I can actually get into freelance writing, you know, like... You know,
which John were you talking to?
John Press.
Okay. Do you know what? We'll go to John afterwards. You know what? You don't even have to ask the question. The answer is yes. You don't have to ask people to do it. You can just go out there and do it. You just
ask somebody, you know, like, you know...
Well, you're a freelance writer now. You could just already think yourself as a freelance writer. If you want to go out and write and publish your work, there's nothing stopping you now to do it. You know, you can set up a blog, you can put your work up there, you can get a camera and you can go out there and you can meet people. Don't worry about the money. The money will come later. Well, it will come. It will come. Yeah.
In the first place, I mean, I am a uni student.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. You know, you can still be working and doing things now whilst you're a student. But you're asking me the question is how do I become a freelance journalist? Is that or writer? Is that the question?
Writer.
A creative writer.
Yeah.
Keep writing. Keep writing. Get your work out there. Get noticed and work hard. That's all you can do. And it's like staying on people's radars. Eventually, if you put that writing under someone who can commission you, such as myself or John, you know, eventually it could happen. But you've just got to go out there and keep doing it.
There's a lot of online forums for writers as well.
Jamie's a writer as well.
Yeah, there's an online forum called Litopia, which is particularly good because it's just for writers. It's actually run by a literary agent, and there's a load of advice about who you can contact. Sort of.
So it's called just Utopia, or
Litopia, Litopia.
There's also an organisation called Creative Leicestershire, which is and they provide business advice. And I knew someone who was 17 who was setting up a band who had a whole day's consultancy with them.
I think the other thing you need to remember is the fact that when are you going to decide that you are a writer or a photographer or a filmmaker or a radio broadcaster? Yeah,
I'm already set on creative writer.
Well, there's probably some people in this room have heard me tell this story before, and forgive me. Yeah, but you know, if you can get in a car and have your first driving lesson and drive 100 yards, turn the car off and get out, you can drive. You know, it's how much you drive is how good a driver you're going to be. And so therefore, if you're reading the news on Demon FM or writing an article for the Demon, or contributing to the websites that were mentioned here, yeah, that it's about the belief that you have. And I think the debate to be had really for guys like yourself is LinkedIn. You know, okay, LinkedIn sells itself as a professional network that's online, social media, that sort of stuff. But when should you be allowed to go on it? You know what I mean? If you are a writer, yeah, you are an aspiring writer. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Now my next question is to Sarah. Simply because I know that you've got to go and I'm aware of the time. Has the, I'm going to read it here, Head of Arts and Museums at Leicester City Council, and he's also dealing with this UK Capital of Culture bid. For anyone in this room who's a creative, who is looking to get work experience, is maybe thinking of residing in Leicester after they finish their degree, which a lot of people do, you might have a bit of work for me over the next 4 years.
Possibly.
Leading up to 2017.
Possibly.
How do I stand out to you?
How do you stand out for us? Well, beginning to do work with us, which is voluntary work, so that while you're studying, get on and get involved in the things that you're doing with us. You may not end up with a job with the council immediately. We've got festival events team, we've got the Montfort Hall team, we've got lots of casual work. It's a good way to get in and just do casual work first of all. But really get involved, and you're building up your CV so that you can apply for jobs later on. So, if whether or not you're wanting to work for the council, it's still worth coming to talk to us. We've got lots and lots of opportunities.
Now, lots of these bids are always built around big venues. So we've got like the Curve, we've got obviously the Montfort Hall. So you're still going to be here in 4 years' time as a venue.
We hope so.
Hopefully. How does someone sort of impress you? How do they get involved with you as a venue, being able to do that? Good. I'm putting him on the spot. That's good.
Put him on the spot. That's good. Well, to tell you the truth, in terms of a venue, it's getting involved in the things we do. Tony's got the centenary coming up this year of De Montfort Hall, and there are an awful lot of outlets for things where people can work in their spare time with voluntary things. I should also say that for small businesses, this is a great time to be in Leicester, because the council's actually got a policy where they are going out and actively encouraging small businesses to work for the council. Even really small things, jobs that are worth, a few £100s a time. That's how you get started. And they're all being tendered out at the moment.
You've been listening to a soundbite from Media Bomb 2013. To find out more, go to facebook.com/MediaBomb.